ICE during a city council meeting yesterday. We'll discuss this and more of today's top stories. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also talk with Houston City Council at-large 4 candidate Alejandra Salinas about her upcoming runoff election with Dwight Boykins.
Plus, we'll also chat with filmmaker Ira Sachs. He'll tell us about his new film, Peter Hujar's Day.
Also, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And don't forget, you can watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
All that and more on Hello Houston right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. With the federal government shutdown over, full SNAP food benefits are being restored. But NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports anxiety over the funding pause are expected to linger.
Jacqueline Giamona and her 2 kids rely on SNAP for nearly all their groceries, and the past 2 weeks without it were tough. She says depriving low-income people of a necessity like food was an abuse of power.
People are going to distrust the government, and I think people are going to be really angry about it for a long time.
Advocate Crystal Fitzsimons with the Food Research and Action Center would like Congress to prevent a repeat.
It does make me nervous that this could be used as a negotiating tactic again.
She and others do see one positive. They say all the attention has shown just how vital SNAP is for so many people. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Washington.
The Eiffel Tower is lit in France's colors, blue, white, and red, as the country observes the 10th anniversary of terrorist attacks in Paris. Commemorations are being held at the sites where a group of ISIS gunmen and suicide bombers targeted crowds at the Bataclan Concert Hall, a stadium, and nearby cafes. 132 people died, hundreds were injured. Tributes include a new memorial garden across City Hall. On Wednesday night, a day after Iraqis voted in parliamentary elections, initial results are in. A coalition led by the country's current prime minister has won the most seats. Here's Jane Araf with more.
Iraq's election commission announced that a political bloc led by Prime Minister Mohammed Shia Sudani won the most seats. But in the Iraqi system, whoever can form the biggest coalition after voting chooses the prime minister. So Sudani will have to persuade other parties to join him to be able to keep the job. Sudani thanked the Iraqi people for his election win. And he called on political parties to put the country's interests before their own. Influential Shia leader Muqtada Sadr, whose movement gained the biggest number of seats in the last parliament, boycotted this election. For NPR News, I'm Jane Araf in Amman.
Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt has taken the rare step of commuting the sentence of a death row inmate shortly before he was to be executed by lethal injection this morning. A state parole board had recommended the Republican governor spare Tremaine Wood's life. Wood was convicted for his role in the 2002 death of a 19-year-old man during a botched robbery. He maintains his brother, who died serving a life sentence in prison, killed Ronnie Whiff, a migrant farm worker from Montana. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow is down 433 points, or nearly 1% at 47,819. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Harris County commissioners are pushing a proposal for a worksite safety policy that would establish standardized safety practices for construction projects. Commissioner Leslie Briones says construction workers should not be putting themselves in harm's way when they go to work.
And Harris County is first, i.e. last, in terms of severe heat-related injuries and severe injuries on construction sites. So Harris County Commissioners Court is taking action because we want to be on the front lines of delivering protection, safety, and opportunity for working families.
Commissioners will vote on the worksite safety policy today. Governor Greg Abbott has ordered a Texas Rangers investigation into Texas Southern University. An interim report from the state auditor alleges major financial mismanagement by the school, totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. News 88.7's Bianca Seward has reaction from local leaders about the allegations.
Houston area Democratic State Senator Boris Miles calls the launch of the investigation, quote, deeply concerning, And if true, the allegations are unacceptable. But he believes most of the mismanagement was not fraud.
There's a difference between misuse and filing and recording and properly documenting the use of money.
TSU is a public university and one of the largest historically black colleges and universities in the country. Miles says for years there have been attempts to strip TSU of its independence.
I wasn't overly surprised. The takeover of Texas Southern has been talked about since 1968.
In a statement, TSU says they have enacted corrective measures prior to the release of the interim report. I'm Bianca Seward, News 88.7.
State Auditor Lisa Collier is scheduled to meet with Texas Southern University officials today. The Galveston County City Council is expected to vote today on a proposal that they say would hold short-term rental owners more accountable for their tenants' actions. Under that ordinance, a host could lose their license to rent if 3 complaints are filed within a single year. Several owners say this would significantly impact their business operations. Supporters say it would limit bad actors. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Hello there, Celeste.
Is today Thursday, Ernie?
Today is Thursday, 2 weeks from Thanksgiving.
Wild.
Frank Billingsley is not with us today. He is off on his way to Vegas.
He's going to see Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, so he's very excited about that. But we're very excited to have you all here with us as we get ready to start the countdown to Thanksgiving.
Countdown to Thanksgiving.
Do you cook a big meal, or does somebody come in and do the cooking, or do you go out?
Every year. It just depends who we're doing Thanksgiving with. I do love to cook if I'm in the right mental capacity to take that on. But, it just depends. Usually so this year we're going down to South Texas. So I'll be spending it with my parents in McAllen, and my brother and his family live there. And usually my mom will have it catered.
Yeah. Now, we've always toiled in the kitchen ourselves, from my mom doing it when we were kids, and we would go out. We lived down on the East Coast, so we'd go up to Cape Cod oftentimes on Thanksgiving, and then my grandmother and the women folk would all be cooking, and us men folk would get in the car and go into Plymouth and go and look around the plantation and all that, like where it happened, and then come home and there would be the big meal. I will, as we get closer to Thanksgiving, I will tell my favorite Thanksgiving story of Thanksgiving dinner, but you'll have to wait for that because we're still 2 weeks out.
We're 2 weeks out. We can't start just yet.
Well, they have, though. The holidays have begun, and what makes it official in our area is the launch of the Nutcracker Market.
That's right.
You live for that.
I love me a Nutcracker Market. It really does put you into the holiday spirit.
Yeah.
And they do such a phenomenal job. The vendors, it's wonderful. I love it.
Houston Ballet puts on this for their education, for their school, and for their student education, and that's what the funds are raised for. They also support us here at the station, and we love the fact that they're a supporter of the station.
Yes, they are.
But you moved a few things because you couldn't be there. So what did you do?
I made sure that we had some representation at the Ballet Nutcracker Market. And Michael Adkison is out there right now, our Houston public media reporter. Michael, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hey guys, happy to be here. As you guys said, at the Nutcracker Market here at the NRG Center. And if you're listening, that's great. But if you're online, take a look at our live stream on YouTube. You can see all of these vendors here behind me. We have hundreds of booths and many more people coming already. It's a Thursday morning. We have a lot of folks who are already out here. And I'm sitting with Angie Lane. She's the Chief Development Officer for the Houston Ballet. And so, again, follow along online if you're watching. But Angie, thank you so much for chatting with us. Would love to just talk with a little bit about what the Nutcracker Market is and what goes on to put it on.
Absolutely. Well, the Nutcracker Market, we're in our 45th year. It started as a church bazaar, and really our dancers used to hand make ornaments. They would bake goods along with our guild members, and it has just grown. That first year they raised $25,000. 45 years later, we have a curated market of 280 pop-up merchants that have a wide variety of merchandise. And we expect to have about 100,000 people out here this year and hope to raise about $6 million for Houston Ballet.
And when you talk about raising that money for Houston Ballet, what does that mean in practice? Where does that money go towards, and how does the ballet use it?
So that's an excellent question. So this is Houston Ballet's largest fundraiser. I mentioned we hope to raise over $6 million. That helps keep Houston Ballet strong. We maintain a core of 61 dancers. We're elite dancers right here in Houston. They're getting ready they're preparing as we speak for our Nutcracker performances that start the day after Thanksgiving and runs till after Christmas. We also have an academy, an elite academy that trains some of the best dancers in the world. We're able to provide scholarships thanks to the money that the Nutcracker Market provides. And as well as we reach about 70,000 kids each year with our arts education programs. We're in about 300 schools each year. And I mentioned Nutcracker. In a couple of weeks, we'll offer 2 student matinees where about 4,000 school children will have the opportunity to see the full live performance of Nutcracker. Often for the very first time, they'll have the opportunity to see a full performance like that.
It's a Thursday morning. We've got through the whole weekend, the Nutcracker Market. You talked about breaking 100,000 people. What's it going to take to get there? How many folks are you expecting to come?
I sure hope. Last year we had 99,000, and we're hopeful that we'll have even more this year. We're off to a great start. Yesterday we had a preview party, and today you can see the crowds are happy people, happy shoppers. The best time to come if you've never been out before, late in the day, the last 3 hours of each day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Discount tickets are half price. We offer discounted tickets at half price admission. And on Sunday is a calmer day where there's not as many shoppers, and so that's a great time to come if you're first time. And again, we hope that people will join us during those times so that we can reach more people.
And it's my first time here, and it's just astounding to see how many people will come out. Again, Thursday morning, you think people are going to be working. There are people who take the day off for this. What does it take to put a huge event like this? It's the biggest fundraising opportunity for Houston Ballet. What does it take to put it all together?
Well, it absolutely is a year-long planning. Right after this market ends, we'll start planning for next year. We actually are introducing a spring market in April of 2026, and so that will be in tandem. The planning will go on. Year-round planning, and then it takes about a week to get this set up. We started move-in last Thursday, and been preparing the last few days, and now you have this sort of magical wonderland for the holidays.
All right, 100,000 people. And if there are anyone who are listening or watching live right now on YouTube, what can they do to get over here, Angie?
Well, the best source of information is nutcrackermarket.com. That'll give you all the information you need, including our open times. You can get tickets on Ticketmaster.com at HEB Business Select and cash at the door. So entry is $20 cash. And yeah, bring comfortable shoes. Plan to spend a few hours. There's a lot to see. Wear your holiday bling and really just get into the festive spirit.
All right, and the last question, what's your favorite part about putting all of this together?
I have to say it's the community. Nutcracker Market really brings out the best in people. We're so fortunate to have such popular support from the community. People come from Oklahoma, from Louisiana, from all over Texas to partake in this wonderful market, and it brings people together, and it's a lot of fun.
All right, Angie Lane, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Celeste, Ernie, I'll turn it back to you guys. As we've said, there are thousands of people who are going to be expected to come here, maybe even wall to wall later this afternoon. Right now, it's a little more calm, so if you want to get your shopping done, come right now, and you can find that information, like we said, at the Houston Ballet's Nutcracker Market, guys.
Michael, can you hear us? Or is
yes,
it too
I
loud?
can.
Great.
No, I can hear you guys.
It's your first time there. What are you wowed by?
I keep saying it. It's just how many people are here right now. You know, we're working. I expected it to just be much more casual. And, you know, I had to park across the parking lot from the NRG Center. It is my first time. I'm kind of in awe. I walked over here and it was about 80 degrees and I'm sweating. and I was thinking to myself, it does not feel like Christmas right now. And then I got in here, and you could just see, I was thinking of asking people when they start celebrating Christmas, and it's obvious that they've jumped the gun and they're already celebrating Christmas in here.
In it. We saw some matching Santas walking behind you, Michael. So you're going to have to, coming up later this hour, you're going to have to show us some of the fashion, the Nutcracker Market fashion that you're getting to experience.
Definitely. We'll be sure to do that, guys.
Okay, find some fun things and tell us about them later.
I want to see you in a Santa hat the next time we talk to you.
We'll see if we can set that up, definitely.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much. Michael Adkison is over at Houston Ballet's Nutcracker Market. We'll be jumping in to tell us a little bit more a little later in the show. We'll go back to him, and we'll see if he makes it. I mean, the folks there are crazy in the best possible way.
I love it. I mean, I have friends who tailgate, who get their outfits ready, the matching, the sequins. My sister is coming in town this weekend, and she's coming from Colorado. And I thought she was going to be very excited to see me, and she said, "Les, is there any way you can get me tickets to the Nutcracker Market?" Right? Like, okay, I'm chopped liver compared to this event, but I think it is fun.
Well, also I'm talking about a casual day. It's these folks are not coming casual to this thing. They dress up. They're in costumes. They're in bling, as they said.
They're fabulous.
Yeah, it is. If you're into people watching, even if you don't want to buy anything, it's well worth going to see what people pull together.
But I will say, even if you're not wanting to buy anything, there is something for everyone. It is the best place to go Christmas shopping.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And they curate it so well because as they were talking about how they plan this over a year, they're looking at each vendor. And if you're a vendor of this, they don't bring in another vendor of this. They try and bring in something else. And there's a long wait list to get in. And it's just an amazing
what's incredible, Ernie? I didn't realize, listening to Angie talk about it, $6 million. They raised $6 million for the Houston Ballet.
In 4.5 days.
4.5 days. Yeah. That is incredible.
It's amazing. And it's great for the ballet. And we love Houston Ballet. And Houston Ballet, of course, as we said earlier, is a supporter of the station, and we appreciate their support that they give us. One other thing, yesterday we were talking about the space station going over Houston, and we got a text from Frank. It's 6:06. So I grabbed my mom. We ran outside. Did you go?
Yep, we all went outside. I grabbed my mom, and we went outside.
And we saw it. Did you see it? It was so clear for us.
I think we saw it, but with us, I don't know, because I have kids that are like, plane. And, we point at everything. We see a star and we're like, well, is that it? No, I don't think that, So last time we saw it, I'm not sure we actually saw it this
We were
time.
standing in the area in front of our house, and our neighbor was there too. And we're like, well, what do we look at? What do we look at? And I was like, well, wait, Frank said it goes from the southwest. We're like, which corner is that? And my neighbor pointed, that's southwest. And all of a sudden there was a little dot flying through the sky. And we're like, that's it. So we all took out our cameras and took pictures of it. All we have are pictures of blue-black sky.
Yeah.
But we knew we saw it. Okay, we talked way too long, so rush into those headlines. There's a lot going on in the world.
Thank you, Ernie. Mayor John Whitmire defended the Houston Police Department's coordination with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, during the City Council meeting on Wednesday, responding to pushback from a council member that was prompted by a news story. At a conference hosted by political pundit Bill King on Saturday, the Houston Chronicle first reported Whitmire said, quote, I'm not going to say that we're not cooperating with ICE because that's frankly not true, unquote. The statement came after Whitmire for months downplayed HPD's work with ICE after the Houston Chronicle reported Houston police officers called ICE more than 100 times this year to alert the federal agency of encounters with people who had active immigration warrants, compared to 9 times in 2024. Following the report over the weekend, Councilmember Mario Castillo on Monday announced on social media that he would withhold his district's funding for HPD over time until he received assurance that my council dollars aren't supporting HPD and ICE coordination. Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston. What do you think of the mayor backing ICE coordination? Do you think Councilmember Castillo is on point or wrong for threatening to withhold funding for HPD over time? Or is it politicizing police enforcement? Again, now is the time to join us, 713-440-8870.
I've got a lot of different feelings on this one. Yeah. ICE is in our area, and ICE is operating in our area. Police notifying ICE to situations I don't feel comfortable with. But police coordinating with them because situations evolve when these raids happen, that you may need police enforcement to for the safety of individuals involved. And so in that regard, I think in some way they have to work in concert together, but I don't. If you're pulled over by, I keep stopping myself halfway through sentences as I think this through.
I understand.
But if you're pulled over by HPD and then they feel that there is a need to call ICE, I feel troubled by that because I don't know how that was handled in the past. If they feel emboldened because ICE is in the area and therefore they feel like they have to, or they could suffer consequences for not notifying ICE that they are suspecting someone of a concern. But the whole thing, I want to know more about the situation, but it's a hard unity. And so in this case, I feel for the mayor in some ways because you need to work with federal enforcement, but you need to also preserve what makes your city who it is.
Well, I think that to your point, you want to know more. I think that is the issue, is that a lot of people feel like when we're looking at these very nuanced situations, and that is the thing, they are very complex, right? Because it stems from multiple angles. Immigration enforcement, which already is very polarizing. Then you have the use of city resources. Should we be using our resources in this regard? And then we've also seen ICE tactics during raids. And so it's so nuanced that I would agree with you, Ernie, that it feels like a mayor that is the mayor of this big of a city is put in a very difficult situation. And what I think people want is transparency, because it feels like we haven't gotten a very clear answer saying, yes, of course, our law enforcement is out there to keep us safe. And we are making sure that we are abiding by the laws and making sure that we are consistent with what we are supposed to be doing. But we're not getting these clear pictures from any of those, from the immigration enforcement to city resources being used on that, how ICE is going about raids. And so I think people feel like we're getting fragmented information.
To add to that, a concern I also have is the fact that if with the lack of information, understanding how this happens and how it's processed and who's involved how, I worry folks that may be on the fringe of full citizenship in our community. That's, I guess, the best way I'll put it. When they find themselves in a situation where police involvement is warranted, they will not call for fear of not understanding how the police will react to it. And yet they could be at risk and need police protection or police involvement. And so it limits the trust in an organization that's supposed to be there to keep us all safe. Regardless, if somebody is visiting from outside our community, from outside our country, comes in, if there's a situation, we expect police are there to help all, not to say, show me your citizenship first. Oh, you don't have it, therefore I'm reporting you. They're going to stop calling. And the violence, the concerned situations could escalate. To go back to your point, I think we need a very clear understanding of how interplay is happening. But even on the federal level, I don't think we have a clear understanding of how ICE is working and operating, who these people are, who is licensing them, who gives them the authority, what stops someone from just sticking a badge on their shirt that says ICE and going out there and harassing or rounding up people. I'm very unclear what's happening. We need structure.
Yes.
Society works on structure.
Right. And, statistically, to your point, we already know that within vulnerable communities, and when I mean vulnerable communities, I mean that people that perhaps are either lower income or they are potentially undocumented, already underreport crime. So statistically, they already are at a deficit of not reporting crime out of fear. And so then you add this extra layer, and it becomes worrisome for any citizen that, wait a minute, if there is some type of crime happening that is not being reported, that puts me at a disadvantage.
Right.
And so, yes, I think that the mayor is in a difficult situation given the fact of this is very nuanced, this is very layered. We are not privy to the conversations that he might be having with Houston Police Department, and I think that we need more transparency.
And we are hoping to have the mayor on. I know you've been in conversation with getting
We're working
him on
with
the
that.
show,
Yes, we
so
are
we
working
can
with
talk
that.
about these issues.
He wants to come. Mayor Whitmire has said he wants to join us on Hello Houston, and so we're working on that. to have him here.
Yes. There's a text that came in that says, Mayor Whitmire has also made very clear that HPD and the city are following the law and ensuring that those criminal detainees who have active warrants from federal agencies are being dealt with according to the law. Now, I don't know who sent us that text, but that was a text we received, but I don't know the policy behind that text. We got a lot more still to come on today's show. We've got some great guests coming up. And while you pull that up, I just want to say today is World Kindness Day. I think we all need a little of that in our
Absolutely.
world.
We do need a little more kindness. But coming up right here on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Houston City Council at large for candidate Alejandra Salinas about her upcoming runoff election with Dwight Boykins. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Next time on The Middle, we're joined by one of the world's top foreign correspondents who's been places most journalists never go.
This symbolizes this dark moment in Iran. Lise Doucette, BBC News, Tehran.
The BBC's Lise Doucette taking your questions on the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, and America's standing in the world. That's next time on The Middle.
It's coming up tonight at 8 p.m.
On last week's Wait Wait, Chef Roy Choi talked about the burdens of being famous for having a food truck.
They don't expect me to show up, but on the freeway when we're driving them, they expect us to throw them food.
I'm Peter Sagal. This week we ask Tiffany Haddish, star of Girls Trip, what people expect her to do when she shows up. That's this weekend on the News Quiz from NPR.
You can hear it Saturday and Sunday at 10 a.m. on News 88.7. Ellen Benninghoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer, proud sponsors of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen. Tune in Monday through Friday at 9 on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from DePelchin Children's Center, whose annual holiday project aims to fulfill the wish lists of more than 2,000 children in their care. Info on getting involved is at DePelchinholidayproject.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celeste Diaz-Sherman and Ernie Manous.
Houston attorney Alejandra Salinas and former Houston City Council member Dwight Boykins both advanced to a runoff election for the Houston City Council at large for position after last week's general election. We've invited both of them to join us on Hello Houston to talk about their platforms. Today we have Alejandra Salinas joining us now on the show, and we will be joined by Dwight Boykins tomorrow. Alejandra, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Longtime fan of the show.
Thank you. Great. And if you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
I guess my first question to you is kind of I'm going to use the term nuts and bolts question. You rose to the top of the group of candidates very quickly. What do you think about that was in your campaign or you as a person that allowed that rise to happen so quickly? People knew your name in a very full slate of candidates. What was it that brought that attention to you, do you think?
I think it was that we were doing the work. Right when we announced our campaign, I was on the phone reaching out to community, meeting with gosh, I can't say how many coffees and breakfasts I had, how many doors we knocked on. My wife and I and our volunteers were knocking on doors back in August, and we did that work consistently day in and day out. And I really made it a point to listen. Something that so many people told me when I went down community is that candidates come and they often tell us all of their, their 15-point plan. But they don't spend a lot of time really listening to what community needs. And I spent most of my coffees and meetings with people asking, what do you need? What do you think we can see more of? And learning from them. And I think it was that combination of listening and doing all the work, the grind of a campaign from the get-go is what set us apart. And I'm just so proud of what we were able to accomplish. And I will just say, I think our campaign was really about hope. You know, there's a lot of terrible things going on in the world, and we can't ignore that reality. Mm-hmm. And this campaign was about reminding people that we can rebuild our democracy from the ground up, and giving and having that little bit of hope when we had that conversation at the door, when we had that conversation at the phone, that it doesn't have to be this way and we can fight back. And I'm so excited about continuing to have that conversation and build that hope over the course of this runoff campaign and hopefully when I'm elected.
A little point in there that I still think is fascinating. In today's day and age with social media and everything that we have in technology, you pointed to the fact of knocking on people's doors. I can't believe that is still an effective way to do this, but it seems to be the best way to reach voters.
Oh, it was incredible. You know, I've knocked on a lot of doors. I'm a former field organizer. I did field with President Obama. I did field on Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. I'm a big believer in field. And coming out as a first-time candidate, you don't quite know if people are going to receive you at the doors. Are they going to be upset that you're interrupting dinner or a meal? And I would say 99% of the conversations I had were people so excited to see me, to talk about the city of Houston, to talk about the issues that matter to them, talk about why I was running. And it just really, I keep coming back to this word, but it gave me hope that we're going to be okay because so many people care so much about their community. And despite everything else they had going on, they wanted to have a conversation. And so I met a lot of great puppies. I met a lot of babies. I met a lot of kittens. And I met a lot of Houstonians who really care. And I'm running to elevate their voices on city council.
And so you did. You were out there. You were doing the legwork. What do people within the at-large 4 area, what do they want?
Yeah. So over those conversations, 3 major issues rose to the top. Not in any particular order, but affordable and reliable city services. I think we need to get the basics right as a city. I know you all and many others have had conversations about just basic things like picking up the trash, picking up the recycling, it actually going to recycling, making sure that our roads are safe to drive on. I've heard some people say that that potholes are great speed deterrents. We should not ever be saying that. We should be doing what we can to get those little things right because a pothole is about so much more than a pothole. It could be the difference between a family having to decide between paying for rent and fixing a tire. If we can get those small things right as a city, we can make people's lives meaningfully better. And then when it comes to infrastructure, obviously making sure that our flood mitigation is strong and that we're making the investments we need. But something that I was somewhat unique on this campaign trail was talking about our water infrastructure. We're losing billions of gallons of water underground, enough to service the city of Fort Worth due to leaky pipes. That's causing sinkholes across the city. And in the midst of a global water crisis, that's simply unconscionable. And the state has allocated a lot of money towards fixing water infrastructure. Let's bring some of those dollars to Houston to fix those leaky pipes and make sure that our water infrastructure is sound. And last but certainly not least, public safety. Making sure that Houstonians feel safe day in and day out. And for me, again, a big part of that was listening and having conversations on all sides. I did a police ride-along where I sat in a cop car and asked a million questions to understand what the experience of a police officer is like, but also met with community groups. And what I heard is we need to make sure law enforcement has some of the basic resources like enough cop cars to patrol the city, but also relying on known community-based approaches to policing. In Boston, Mayor Wu has brought down the murder rate dramatically by focusing on hotspot areas with increased resources like Job Corps resources, mental health resources, rehabilitation resources. Let's pilot that in Houston. We can't do it everywhere immediately, but let's pick some hotspot areas, provide more community resources so law enforcement can focus on going after violent criminals, but not trying to fix all the city's ills, which isn't fair to them or to others.
You talk about these issues that we face, and I can't help but wonder, we've had lots of politicians, lots of elected officials sit in the chair you're in right now, and they point to the similar things, and they talk about these things. If everyone seems to say, yes, we shouldn't have these potholes, yes, we should take care of this and that, the leaking water and all that, what is the block at getting that stuff fixed? It seems like it's on a lot of people's agendas. What do you bring to the table that says, we're not just talking about it, this is the solution, this is how it gets fixed? What's the blockage I'm missing here?
Well, I can't promise to have all the solutions, but I think what makes me different from the field of 15 and the field of 2 that remain is that I've spent the last 20 years of my life taking on big fights and actually getting things done. I got my start organizing a walkout to protest an immigration bill that was going to be a threat to my community. We ended up turning that into an incredible forum where students got to speak for and against the bill. I became the first national Hispanic president of the College Democrats of America, where I organized young people around the country around President Obama and his historic legislation. And in the past almost decade, I've been a trial lawyer and partner at Sussman Godfrey, where I've taken on some of the biggest companies in the world, including being a part of the team to help secure a $1.5 billion settlement against Anthropic, one of the AI companies that was taking the work of authors all across this country. And I've represented Lena Hidalgo and Tanisha Hudspeth when the Republicans tried to overturn our election in 2022. We fought back and made sure that we secured the election. And I've represented students who were being kicked out of class just because of the style of their hair. We fought back and got those students into class. And in each of those fights, I've learned in politics and the law, it's a combination of advocacy and consensus building. It's understanding when to fight on the inside and the outside, but when to build that consensus. And it's going to take all of that to get things done. I recognize I will be one of 16 around the horseshoe. And the only way that I'm going to be able to deliver on some of these goals that we're trying to achieve is if I can get that consensus across the horseshoe. And so I want to take all the lessons I've learned, being at one of the best law firms in America, at being a national youth organizer, to make that difference for Houstonians. So I think that's what sets me apart from other candidates.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about consensus, and it sounds like absolutely, right? You have to get that buy-in and working together as a team, but we also have just some very basic logistics of roadblocks. For example, you're talking about public safety as one of the things that you heard as a concern, and we had Ken Neely from the police department yesterday on our show, and he basically said we are understaffed with our police department by 1,200. I mean, those are things that how are you going to essentially fill in those gaps through helping people?
Well, on law enforcement, I think it is incredible what HPD has had to do with such little resources. We have, I think it's half or 3/4 of the police force that the city of Chicago has, with basically the same size city.
Right.
And so that is a huge commend. It's a recognition of what our law enforcement's been able to do with so little. But with the pay increases, what I have heard across the board is there's been a great surge in recruitment. So hopefully we'll have additional numbers to fill the support that they need to secure our city. But of course, the question to all of this comes back to the budget. How do we pay for it?
Correct.
And one of the things that I've been a big champion of, and one of the first things I want to put forth when I get elected to council, is doing more as a city to fight for grants. We do not have a dedicated grant writer in the Department of Public Works. Right now, there are different departments in the city that are applying for the same grants because there's not coordination across the city. This is a small, minuscule investment we can make in a few grant writers. We can use metrics, hold them to account, but make sure that if we're going to go ask the taxpayers to pay more money, we're also doing everything we can as a city to bring in additional revenue from alternative sources. And while we may have challenges bringing in money from the federal government, there's a lot of private partners out there that want to see the city do better. And so I want to fight for each of those dollars and be as creative as possible to bring in additional resources to help address that very issue and so many others that our city faces.
We were talking about the police, and earlier we were talking about Mayor Whitmire's comments about HPD cooperating with ICE. And a quote that Whitmire said is reported by the Houston Chronicle is, "I'm not going to say that we're cooperating with ICE because that's frankly not true." This quote's caused a bit of a backlash. Mario Castillo has threatened to withhold HPD overtime funding. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, I can say the issue is very personal for me. I have a relative, an American citizen, that was detained by ICE. He's okay, but it was a horrific experience, and one that I know many American citizens and frankly Latinos around this country are very nervous about. I have so many relatives that say they walk around now with their passport because they want to be prepared if that horrible thing happens. I think what we are seeing ICE do is frankly un-American. And we, as Latinos, as Houstonians, as Americans, need to stand up against it. And I'm glad that the mayor and the city is being more transparent with what is going on. And I recognize we are under very draconian limits that the state legislature and Greg Abbott have placed on Houston. But I think we need to figure out everything in our power to push back and protect the communities as much as we can under the letter of the law. And where the law is wrong, we need to fight back and bring litigation. I know a whole lot about that. And I hope to see the city partnering with the county and other cities, frankly, across the country to fight back in a meaningful and strategic way. But we have to protect our communities. I think law enforcement will be the first to tell you we are no safer when our local law enforcement is trying to enforce immigration laws. And so I recognize we're under limitations that the state has imposed on us, but in every opportunity we have to push back, we need to do so to protect our city.
So your understanding when we take the mayor's quote, which is, I'm not going to say that we're not cooperating with ICE because that's frankly not true. So I'm taking that to read he is, and our police department is cooperating with ICE. If I'm reading that right, your feelings on HPD being used to aid ICE in what's happening. Am I reading this correctly, too, from where you sit?
As I understand what the police department is doing is, and I saw this when I was in the ride along with the police officer, we didn't encounter someone who was undocumented, but he explained it to me. ICE has now put in all of their warrants into the system. So if someone gets pulled over and they search somebody's name, that warrant will now appear. Historically, that had not been the case. And they are obligated to call ICE to inform them we have just pulled someone over and their name has appeared. Now, the question is, what more do we have to do? And do we have to make that phone call? Because it's not an Article 3 warrant. And so I would want to work with the city attorney and frankly use my own legal background and work with other legal scholars to figure out how far can we push that? Do we have to make the calls? Can we say if it's only an Article 3 warrant, do we have to make the call? Again, figuring out what the legal limitations are, and if we're stuck with it, let's file lawsuits and push back. Let's figure out ways to protect undocumented immigrants in schools and in hospitals. There is no reason why I should be in schools and hospitals. So figuring out what those lines are. But yes, there is state law that says we have to cooperate to some degree. Let's figure out what exactly those lines are and push back as much as we can to protect community.
Who currently makes the decision if you call in a level 3 warrant or whatever you called it? Who makes that decision at this point? Is it the mayor? Is it city council? Is it chief of police? Who sets the policy that if it's a level 3 warrant, it's called in?
Well, so I'm not saying it is the policy. Right now, if ICE has a warrant, which is not an Article 3 warrant, they are making those calls. And so the question is, what do we think we're legally allowed to do under state law?
Is determining what we are legally allowed to do?
I think that'd be a question for city council and the mayor. I'm obviously not currently on city council, but that is one of the first questions I would want to ask is, who's making the call as to what degree do we have to cooperate under state law? There's some degree of cooperation has to occur under state law. And so what is that cooperation that's required, and how can we fight back up until that point? And should we bring litigation to challenge the level of cooperation that we are required to do under state law?
Okay, sorry, I got a little in the weeds there trying to figure it out.
Alejandra, something that you also mentioned, we talked a little bit about affordability, and you also talked about infrastructure. When we look at infrastructure, our area is infamous for having, like you said, potholes and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about your vision for your area in regards to infrastructure.
Well, so just to be clear, my area is at large, so it's the entire city of Houston.
Okay.
Yes.
At large 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So is your question what kind of infrastructure?
Yeah. What do you think needs to happen, and how is it going to happen?
Well, I think we as a city should sort of double down on what we do best. We have incredible parks. Mm-hmm. We have, there's been some investments in public transportation. I think we should continue to make more of it. When it comes to our roads, we obviously have an epidemic right now where pedestrians are being injured by vehicles. Figuring out what we can do to protect those pedestrians and making smart decisions about how we're developing our infrastructure. I think this is going to take a collaborative approach. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We can't say everywhere there has to be, 4 bike lanes or nowhere there has to be bike lanes. I think you have to have that conversation on a community-by-community level, figure out what that community needs, figure out what the city's needs are, and work together to find a solution that hopefully satisfies the largest number of people. But I think it has to be a collaborative approach that we adapt depending on what part of the city we're in. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to do good work, and I think there's great examples of that already in the city of Houston.
Well, I think, something that comes to mind is you touched on bike lanes and public transportation. And something right here on Hello Houston, we know from our listeners and viewers, they want to understand what is going on in regards to public transportation and why our city hasn't been able to get a better handle of this, given the fact that we are so diverse, given the fact that we are so large, and compared to other cities, so behind.
I mean, obviously, funding and resources has been a big obstacle to that. And I think it just needs to be a priority of council and the mayor. And on city council, that's something I'm going to fight for every day. As a lawyer, I recruit people every day to come to my law firm from all over the country. And one of the pitches I make is that my wife and I live in Montrose, and we get to walk to the grocery store, we get to walk to the coffee shop, and we take our bike onto the bayou. And making that pitch of living in a city where all types of transportation are welcome, I think helps bring in, it's not only just good for the city, it's good for the residents, but it's good business. And we as I think the economic driver of the state should always be thinking about that. And we can all benefit from sort of giving people options when it comes to transportation.
You talk about, in a sense, I'm going to paraphrase here, but fighting the good fight as an attorney there. Why move into politics? Why take on this role and approaching it from that position?
This last election, it really shook me. And my wife and I, looked at each other and we said we wanted to do more. And we thought about where could we do more? And, we looked around and we saw, city government. I mean, people hear me say this on the trail, but I really mean it. City government is in many ways the government you interact with most. Mm-hmm. It's the street you drive down. It's the water you drink. It's the police you interact with. And right now we have a president who ran on an agenda of destroying government. And the best way, I think, to rebuild people's trust in government is to fix the government they interact with most. And so I think there's a real opportunity by rebuilding the public's trust and making good, meaningful change in people's lives on city council. I'm not running for office to give speeches or to, make statements. I'm running to tangibly impact people's lives. And I can think of no better place to do that than on city council.
Alejandra Salinas is running for the Houston City Council at large for position. Alejandra, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
It's my pleasure. Thank you all for your time.
And coming up, we're going to talk with director Ira Sachs. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Public Media and Texas Standard. Food and beverage from St. Arnold's full menu will be available for purchase. Plus, Shop Local Market will pop up with Houston artists and talented makers. That's this Friday at St. Arnold Brewing Company. Details at houstonpublicmedia.org/TS10.
You can't tackle life's big challenges if you let the little ones get you down. That's why Houston Matters devotes the first Monday of each month to a sort of group moan session we call Houstonian Pet Peeves. It's a communal, cathartic experience, but not everyone can join us live at 9 a.m., and not every peeve occurs to you right then and there. That's okay. We welcome your gripes about life in Houston anytime at talk@houstonmatters.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from the Houston Ballet, presenting Stanton Welch's The Nutcracker. The holiday tradition returns to the Wortham Theater next Friday. Tickets available at houstonballet.org.
Support comes from Galveston Historical Foundation, presenting the 52nd anniversary of Dickens on the Strand. Galveston's historic streets come alive once again with special events, entertainment, and holiday cheer. December 5th through the 7th, dickensonthestrand.org.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston System, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celeste Diaz-Sherman and Ernie Manous.
Ira Sachs is an American filmmaker known for writing and directing films such as Keep the Lights On, Love is Strange, Little Man, and more recently, Passages, all of which have garnered critical acclaim. His newest film, Peter Hujar's Day, is a biographical drama set in the 1970s about famed American photographer Peter Hujar, and the film stars actor Ben Winshaw and Rebecca Hall in the leads. Here to join us now and talk about that, his career, and all the rest of it is Ira Sachs. Hello there, sir.
Hello.
Welcome,
nice to be
welcome.
in conversation with you two.
Yes, welcome.
We'll talk career and all that. I want to jump right into this film and say, as I understand, you were aware of the book, the manuscript, whatever we want to call it, and thought this would make for a good film. When you think about it, two people talking in a room, in a situation for a film seems some ways very challenging for a director to find fresh ways to engage with an audience throughout the time span of the film. For you, was that part of the challenge and part of the excitement of doing it, was taking a conversation and making it cinematic?
Yeah, I think from the moment I read the book and there were certain images in the description that Peter, the photographer, had about his day that were so moving to me and so vivid. And I also felt like he was describing a day in 1974 very, very specifically, and it allowed me to feel like I was in that day and I was back in that time and I was part of that world of artists that he lived in. And that felt very special to me. So translating it to a movie was certainly the challenge, but also the pleasure of the film.
Yeah. Do you think when you read a book like that visually while you're reading it, or is it idea and thematic that steps out to you from your whole history?
Well, I was reading the book while I was making the film Passages with Ben Whishaw, and I really loved collaborating with this actor, and I felt like, what can we do next? Like, I wanted to continue and the collaboration and the creative kind of partnership. So I was intrigued from the beginning, but it was really the last moment in the book when Peter described standing alone at his apartment in the middle of the night, listening to several sex workers on the street below his house. And it was such a moving and melancholy image that just felt to me purely cinematic. And I thought, somehow I'm going to make a movie of this material.
Mm-hmm. Is it strange, is it odd in today's day and age to be working in such, I guess, is there an audience, I guess, in the way we push people toward big bombastic amusement park ride movies for a quiet, thoughtful, true cinematic art film to exist?
I'm finding that there is.
Yeah,
I'm happy
thank
to
God.
Give me
hope.
I think what people expect from a movie is different today than maybe what it used to be. But I think there's still an audience of people who want an intimate experience with what they see on the screen, and they want to have some sort of emotional life that comes forward when they listen and watch these actors and these images. So yeah, I mean, I think, you and I stand here as a testament to an expectation that movies can be something different than the unreal. They can also be something that is very real and personal.
Well, I've been reading a little bit about this film, and you are getting rave reviews. RogerEbert.com, the critic Monica Castillo said that this is a masterclass in composition, creating movement where there is little, and finding an unconventional way to film two people talking. Talk to me a little bit about the artistry that you brought to this.
Well, I realized that it's a film about a portrait photographer, but in a way, the film is also its own sort of exploration of cinematic portraiture. So I was thinking about How do we look differently when we're on a Zoom call? How do we look at the middle of the night if we're in our bedroom? What do we look like if we're outside on a terrace overlooking New York City? How do we feel differently about characters based on where they're seen in the image? So for me, there was a lot of playfulness to this film. I was watching Godard films, and I was watching Fassbinder films, and I was watching Bergman films, and I was really thinking about how the image, and specifically the portrait, can evoke feeling in an audience. So there is the text of the film, which is about Peter Hujar's day, and then there's the experience of the film, which is about a whole other set of ideas.
You talk about Peter as the photographer of portraiture, and I'm wondering, when you're framing your shots, are you thinking, how would he frame it? How would it look through his eyes?
Yeah. I both did and I didn't, if I could say that. I know Peter's work since the 90s. I've been very interested. Peter was a photographer of really this subculture in the East Village of New York that was a very vibrant and very queer world of creative people. And he kind of gave me a window into a world that I wanted more of. So I knew his photography for over 30 years very, very diligently, rigorously. Like, I know it really well. But I also tried not to look at it, because this was something we were making in the present. And I wanted Peter to be resonant and his work to be resonant, but also not to try to kind of steal from him. Like, he has his own eye and I have my own eye. And somehow they maybe interact in this film. But also I preserve something that he does in his photographs, which is totally unique.
I am reminded of a film that I saw, and I want to say, I cannot remember for the life of me the name of the director, but I got to know him and I talked with him, a film called Together Alone. And it came out maybe 1991. Two men meet, they go back to an apartment, and the whole film takes place that night, them just talking. And this film reminds me of that in a lot of ways, but they're very different films, but just that concept of, and I was very moved when I saw that film a gazillion years ago, and it still stays with me. And I think that's the same with your film. The idea of people alone together having a real moment is so rare to be that fly on the wall if you're not one of the people in the moment.
Well, that's really interesting. One, I don't know that film, and I'm going to track it down. I'm sort of curious about it. Two, it's one of the things that cinema can do really uniquely, is that you can be with a character when they are alone. And that is actually, when I describe that image of Peter at 3 a.m. standing by his window with this glass between him and the city, and these sounds of these women, actually, I think trans women and sex workers on the street speaking, I feel like, wow, we're allowed to be with him when he's in that very quiet, personal moment. So you're describing my intention of this film, which is to be together with the two of them, Peter and Linda, because their friendship is so personal that we feel fortunate to kind of witness it.
Yeah. PJ Castellaneta, that was the director, I know him as Paul, but he also made a film called Relax, It's Just Sex, and that was about his career. Those were the two films, but PJ Castellaneta. Wow. So if you have a chance, look it up. For you, you've done this. What do you want to do next? Where does the eye take you next?
Well, I just finished shooting a film called The Man I Love, with Rami Malek and Rebecca Hall and Eben Moss-Bacharach, a great, wonderful cast. That's a musical drama set in the East Village at the end of the 1980s. So I'm still interested in that period because we lost a lot, but there was so much life there. And I guess I need it. I want that life.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing what you have shared with us so far, and I look forward to even more.
That's right. Ira Sachs is the writer and director of Peter Hujar's Day. Ira, thank you again for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you both.
The film is now playing in select theaters across the country. Coming up, we're going to continue diving into today's top stories. We'll also learn about the legacy of former Vice President Dick Cheney, both locally and nationally. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Metro, introducing Metro Downtown Direct, helping riders get home for the holidays with nonstop service between downtown and Bush Intercontinental Airport. Details at ridemetro.org/500.
Ellen Benninghoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer, proud sponsors of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen. Tune in Monday through Friday at 9 on News 88.7. For today, another sunny day, and we'll get up to about 81 for the high. Tonight, mostly clear, a low near 64. Currently, it's 81. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, emails released from Jeffrey Epstein's estate are raising questions about President Trump's knowledge of the convicted sex offender's actions. We'll discuss this and more as we continue diving into today's top stories. I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
And I'm Ernie Manous. We'll also speak with University of Houston professor Chase Untermeyer and Texas Monthly's Loren Steffy, who will tell us about the local and national legacy of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
Plus, we'll also share a rundown of the things that are currently taking over all of our free time for our regular Thursday feature, Current Obsessions.
And we want to hear yours. Give us a call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You know, you can also watch us on YouTube. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston continues right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. House Speaker Mike Johnson says he plans to hold a vote next week on a measure requiring the Justice Department to release all files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The House Oversight Committee has already released tens of thousands of Epstein documents. They've propelled Democratic allegations that President Trump knew more about Epstein's sex crimes than he's let on, a claim that President Trump has strongly denied. NPR spoke with Democratic California Congressman Ro Khanna about the upcoming vote.
First of all, we may get a veto-proof vote in the House. You could get that in the Senate, and it will put such incredible pressure for the MAGA base to be voting against the president. That has never happened in his first term or second term.
Epstein died in jail in 2019, authorities say by suicide, after the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York charged him with sex trafficking minors. He was accused of crimes in New York and Florida involving dozens of victims. His accomplice and former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, is in prison for sex trafficking. Federal aviation officials say temporary flight reductions will remain at 6% because more air traffic controllers are coming to work. NPR's Joel Rose reports it may take several days before commercial aviation returns to normal following the government shutdown.
The reductions in air traffic at dozens of major airports had been slated to rise to 10% by Friday. Instead, the Department of Transportation says they will stay at 6% because more air traffic controllers are showing up for work. The Federal Aviation Administration has said the cuts were necessary to keep the airspace safe as the agency grappled with a staffing shortage of air traffic controllers during the federal government shutdown. Some air traffic controllers took on second jobs and many called in sick. With the shutdown now over, airlines are preparing to ramp back up to full schedules. Aviation regulators say that will happen when safety data improves, but they have not given any timetable. Joel Rose, NPR News, Washington.
Google says it's suing an organization that it claims enables phishing and tech scammers. More from NPR's John Ruich.
Google is targeting an enterprise it calls Lighthouse. In a court filing, it describes it as a well-organized criminal group that creates and distributes software and support for would-be cyber criminals. Basically, it helps them make phony phishing websites and hook victims with texts. Lighthouse is based in China, and Google says it does not actually know the names of the people involved. Instead, the company is seeking a court injunction to help it dismantle the Lighthouse enterprise from the outside in, targeting other companies or entities that might be facilitating Lighthouse. Google says its logo is on many websites and website templates created by Lighthouse, and that undermines user trust in Google. Google is among NPR's financial supporters. John Ruich, NPR News.
Major market indices are down 1% to more than 2%, the Dow falling nearly 500 points. From Washington, it's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. For the third time over the past year, the Houston City Council voted to expand rules intended to get homeless people off public sidewalks. The latest expansion, approved yesterday, covers the greater East End, where city officials expect to open a homeless services center early next year. News 88.7's Dominic Anthony Walsh reports citations for sidewalk obstruction are already surging.
In the 3 months following the last expansion in mid-July, police officers initiated more than 1,000 cases for sidewalk obstruction, compared to about 500 in the prior 3 months. Councilmember Julian Ramirez voted in favor of expanding the civility ordinance, but he also pointed to those numbers, first reported by Houston Public Media, and asked for more data from Mayor John Whitmire's administration.
Do they end up in services? Are they fined? Are those fines waived? How many are actually paid, et cetera? And I think this kind of data would help inform our policies going forward.
While full details for all citations issued over the past 3 months are unavailable, fines were waived in 77 cases due to individuals spending time in jail. Another 65 cases were dismissed, according to data obtained from the city's municipal courts. I'm Dominic Anthony Walsh, News 88.7.
Fort Bend County leaders gathered Wednesday to celebrate broadband expansion in rural parts of the county. The $18 million Comcast project will bring high-speed internet access to more than 3,000 homes and businesses. This is Fort Bend County Judge KP George speaking at a press conference.
This is about more than internet access. This is about equity. It is also about education.
Other rural parts of the county are expected to gain high-speed internet access over the next year. And now a correction. Earlier this week, we ran a story about the expected runoff date for the special election in the 18th Congressional District being January 24th. Under state election code, Governor Abbott is actually obligated to schedule the runoff 70 to 77 days after the governor himself completes the final canvass of the Election Day results. That means the date of the runoff could come as late as January 31st. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR produce programming that meets the highest standards of public service in journalism and cultural expression.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Well, Celeste and Ernie.
Celeste.
Frank is battling the wonderful airports out there, but they seem a lot more ease to get through today.
Yes.
That was a terrible sentence, but with the government reopened now, and so, but they do say it's going to take a few weeks before everything in the air traffic world gets back to the norm, which we would hope it's better than the norm because sometimes traveling can be a nightmare. But Frank's off to Vegas to go see Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about, the government's back open and people are still going to be feeling this shutdown for a while. We've had people calling in, and we're also looking at the airports, how things are starting to move smoother. But, our air traffic controllers have been working overtime. They're exhausted. Their families, they have families. They have felt that. And so
working without pay.
It's interesting how the rest of us will move on, but there are still people that are hurting.
Yeah,
so
and it's going to take a little time before everything is back as it is. SNAP benefits are coming back, but it's going to take a little time to load all that up too. So it's just interesting what we went through. And the scariest thing is that when all is said and done, we've got to figure out the budget still, and that's going to come back up again in about, the end of December. So we're back at it again.
We're back at it.
Maybe 2 months. I can't exactly
But
remember.
we really are in the full swing of the holidays and what's going on.
Well, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I do have to say, we've been very chatty today, you and I,
Yes,
both on and off air. And I'm looking over at our chat group in YouTube, which is where there's a whole community that gathers every day. And I kind of feel like they're a bunch of our friends because we've gotten to know them as they're there. And they've been kind of quiet today, and they're even talking about it. This chat line's been quiet today, but there's just as many people there. So,
yes. Yeah. And I did see Noah Espinosa, so some of his comments are some of my favorite. He said that they're just locked into the conversation.
Oh, well, then that's okay then.
And Alex Garza...
British computer guy says it's his fault. Sorry, Ernie.
And Alex Garza also said the show needs some fun product placements like Hello Houston coffee mugs or hoodies. We want Hello Houston caps.
We need swag.
We need swag.
We do need swag.
All right. We're going to get working on that swag.
Anyway, we were talking a little bit about the space station going over, and last night we went out and saw it. You weren't quite sure if you saw it or not,
I don't know
but
if
we
I saw it.
Definitely saw it. And I thank Frank because he sent us all personal texts to say,
He
go
did.
outside and
Go
look.
outside.
I would have totally forgotten it.
The Javelman says that they saw the IISS at 6:10 in Porter, Texas. So
Yeah,
I think
it was out
pretty
there.
clear.
It was cool. We were very happy that it happened. I did mention a little earlier, we're 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving, and I mentioned I was going to tell a Thanksgiving story. And then I thought, a rule of broadcasting is don't introduce something and then not share it. And so to let it dangle there for a week or so before I told the story. So I'm going to tell my Thanksgiving story.
Okay, tell us your Thanksgiving story.
So the family's together. It's Thanksgiving dinner. And my grandmother has made this beautiful turkey, and everyone's like, oh, and it's put on the table, and they're like, who's going to carve the turkey? And my dad stands up and starts carving. Now, we're mostly a white meat family. Slice after slice. Beautiful, the steam. I'm painting this picture, the aroma, the golden skin of the thing. Slice. Everyone, and my dad's putting it on the plate. And then he takes that plate and sits down and starts eating. And everyone's like, wait a minute. And he was like, what? I'm hungry. And he took a card for himself and started eating.
And didn't pass it around.
No. And we all just watched him sit and eat all the way. So we had to get up and carve the turkey ourselves. That's one of my favorites.
That is one of your favorite.
Tells you a lot, doesn't it?
That is amazing. That is hilarious.
Another holiday tradition that we truly love is the Nutcracker Market. And we love it because Nutcracker is also a supporter of our station right here, Houston Ballet, and the Nutcracker Market support us, and we thank them for that support. That had nothing to do with us wanting to be there, though. We wanted to be there because, as Celeste says, this is the event.
This is the Super Bowl for many women out there, and we're going to head out there right now to check in with our Houston Public Media reporter, Michael Adkison, who's there at the Houston Ballet's Nutcracker Market. Michael, welcome back to Hello Houston.
Hey, guys. Happy to be here. We are here at the NRG Center at the Nutcracker Market, and I'm joined right now by Debbie and Aaron. Take a look, and I wanted to ask you guys, remind me, what is your booth name?
Two Tequila Sisters. How could you forget?
How could I forget?
Tequila.
We are here. They're just one of hundreds of different markets that are here at the Nutcracker Market. So just kind of walk me through. You guys have been here for several years now. When did you guys start, and how has it changed?
We started in 2017, and in a 10 by 10, now we have tripled our booth, and it's just gotten better and better every year.
And then with that, just tell me a little bit about what you guys have sold, what your favorite and most popular products have been.
We do custom denim. So what we have in our booth is very unique. So women tend to like it because they can find stuff that no one else will have and duplicate. And so we get lots of really fun orders for hats and custom denim jackets and shirts and
bread and butter is Astros.
Yeah, we love our Astros gear. Of course, all the college stuff. Texans are crushing it. So we do a lot of sports.
How crucial is an event like this to you guys' business, and what does it mean for you guys?
Oh, wow. This is like the moneymaker. I mean,
critical. It's critical. It's more than just the sale itself. It's the ability to market to this many women at one time in your local hometown is just invaluable. So we don't even consider it that much for the actual market itself. It's just the ability to get out there and network. It's fabulous. And it's fun.
It is.
And there's drinking and there's lots of sparkles and sequins.
Everybody here is happy.
Everyone's
which is
happy.
great.
Yes.
But I mean, being a woman-owned business, local to Houston, I mean, this is a game changer for us. This is one market in particular.
For everybody. I mean, this can really make or break an opportunity.
All right, last question. Favorite Christmas tradition, and is it the Nutcracker Market?
Oh, for sure. I think.
I mean, the Nutcracker Market, for sure.
It
We
just
love it.
makes Christmas
Yes.
seem real.
I
It's
know.
like once you have the Nutcracker Market, boom, time
And
flies.
And the costumes and the outfits that people wear, like, it's just so fun to watch and see everybody. We love
More
it.
is more. We're in Texas.
Oh my gosh, more is more.
All right, ladies, thank you again so much for your time. I appreciate it. All right, guys, we are going to do a little bit of a walk and talk around here. There's so many people here, so the reception may be a little lackluster, but if you're watching live on YouTube, you can see I'm walking through. I will say Ernie asked me to wear a Santa hat at the last hour. I had my eyes on a Christmas cowboy hat. It had Santa hat on. It was red and it had white fur. And
Michael, I don't see it
I
on
saw
your
it.
head.
We don't see it.
I was gonna say, Ernie, I had my eye on it. The line was so long that I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna circle back for it. I'm gonna look around a little bit more, and I'll circle back. There's so much stuff here. I am lost. I have no idea where that hat is, where it has gone. There are so many booths here and just so many people. I mean, just look. This place is really filled up in just the last couple of hours. I know. Look at that. Everyone is so excited for Hello Houston.
Yes.
But there are so many people here. They're expecting as many as 100,000 folks were going to come here over the weekend. This is open until Sunday. So just definitely, if you're interested, get out here. You can find out more information on Houston Ballet. It does benefit the Houston Ballet and the Nutcracker itself and lots of local businesses that are here, guys.
Okay, Michael, you've been wandering around, and you did say this is your first time at the Houston Ballet Market, and we're talking about all the crazy stuff. What is the craziest thing you have seen?
Oh, what's the craziest thing I have seen? I was looking around and considering what I should get for my family for Christmas. One, I'm crowded. I don't know if you can tell. I'm dodging people left and right. Walking. This is dangerous. No, not looking at where I'm going. But I did see a lot of candles with celebrities on them, and I saw a Chapel Roan themed candle that I thought this is perfect for what my sister would want for Christmas. So I have my eye on that.
I know
you
that
have
vendor.
seen.
I have seen that vendor.
You know him.
with those
You know him.
candles. They're fabulous.
And then I will say I have seen, as Celeste has alluded to, lots of drinks, lots of themed holiday drinks around here. And I was thinking to myself, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and we have seen people who are just lined up for it. So that it's just been fascinating to watch.
Last year when I was there, Michael, reporting, I saw I was actually reporting there for Houston Matters. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and there was a cart that had these shots, Jell-O shots at 10 a.m. And I tell you what, the ladies were enjoying it. But it really does look packed, and I'm seeing lots of green and red and pink and sparkly.
I'm trying to get the Grinch on here. You see the... Oh, there we go. Okay, you see the Grinch? There's the Grinch. Towering over everyone.
Well, we do have some comments in our chat group saying, too much Christmas, too soon. There definitely is too much Christmas where you're at right now, isn't there?
You know, I think that's the million-dollar question. What do we call too much Christmas? Is there such a thing as too much Christmas? But certainly, I said this at the last hour, walking in, you know, it's 80 degrees outside, and you think to yourself, it is not Christmas time. But you walk in here, and you wouldn't know it. It's nice and cool. We have folks taking pictures with their Christmas tree, as you can see. Lots of Christmas activity in here. So, you know, maybe if Christmas isn't your scene in the middle of November, this isn't the spot for you, but you can get ahead and do your Christmas shopping here, because you know that's coming just around the corner.
That's right. Michael Adkison is a Houston Public Media reporter who is currently at the Houston Ballet Nutcracker Market. Michael, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Happy to be here, guys.
Thanks,
All right,
Michael.
thanks, Michael.
Oh, that looks so much fun. I'm really kind of bummed I'm not there. I hate the traffic. I hate the crowds. You know, I'm the bah humbuggy guy when it comes to that. But oh my God, when I see it, I'm like, why can't I just be in the middle of it all? I do love it.
I love it. But you know what else I love?
What?
I love headlines, Ernie.
Oh, do you love headlines? Well, then why don't you share some news with us?
I'm going to jump in. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history is over, and lawmakers are shifting their focus to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation after Democrats released a small batch of emails from the convicted sex offender's estate. The documents include never-before-seen emails that raise questions about President Donald Trump's knowledge of Epstein's conduct. Shortly after the initial release, News Nation reports that Republican lawmakers released tens of thousands of emails from Epstein's estate. Trump, who signed legislation reopening the government late Wednesday night, did not address the emails during the Oval Office ceremony. On social media, he accused Democrats of leaking the files to, quote, distract from their role in the shutdown, unquote. House Speaker Mike Johnson said a vote to compel the Department of Justice to release all Epstein-related files could take place as soon as next week. Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston. What do you think of the Epstein file? Are you for the release? Or, as Trump stated, is this just a distraction? What didn't Democrats ask for the files to be released when Joe Biden? Why didn't Democrats ask for the files to be released when Joe Biden was president? Again, 713-440-8870.
Yeah, I do believe there is a distraction going on. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it's coming from the direction the president was alluding to. I think it may be coming from the other direction. Do I think there is some there? I think there is. Do I think it will be what we're expecting? I don't know. I don't know what's actually there. But boy, oh boy, the White House is working very hard to keep these things locked down. Why? That has to be the question we wonder. Why is it so important to not just let the files out? I saw Mike Johnson talking yesterday, and he was saying, well, you know, all these have been let out, so now the Epstein file is pretty much mute, so sure, why not just release it? Well, okay, then do it. Then just do it. Then release it, you know? If it's so mute, then moot, why have you worked so hard so long to keep it locked down? Yeah. I'm curious what people think about it. We've talked an awful lot about it here on the show. So what are your thoughts about the Epstein file? Do you think we need to release it? We need to see what's in there? Or do you think with the estate releasing all this documentation and the different reports and some of the victims coming out and speaking, that we pretty much are getting the same information we get from the files? What do you think? 713-440-8870. I believe there's a lot more to be learned.
You know, I often think that something that we look at when we looked at elected officials, they talk about safety and they talk about making sure that we are keeping our communities safe. And then I look at this situation, and it is so sad because I watched a documentary about this, the Epstein files, or not the files, but the situation, what went down. And you look at it, and there were a lot of very powerful people that took advantage of very young girls. Mm-hmm. And I ask myself, if you are truly looking out for the safety of young women and young girls, then you would want justice. And the way you can bring justice to this is by releasing the names, opening the files, and say, here it is. Here are the people that were involved that we know were abusing young women. Mm-hmm. Do it. This is not about politics. This is about young women that were taken advantage of. And we now have very powerful people, men, that can do something about it, and they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, the point being exactly what you're saying. And I keep harping on Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did not do this for themselves alone. They did it for this network of other people. Who were the other criminals in this activity? Why are they not being called to justice? And that's the part that bothers me in all of this. A lot of the focus is on Trump and the Trump White House and what did Trump know and when did he know?
Republicans and Democrats, and what are they saying about each other?
Regardless of all of that, you're guilty if you behaved in this manner, and justice should be shown to you. You should, or I'm phrasing it wrong. You should be held accountable for your behaviors.
Yes.
Regardless of who you are, what your economic stratus is, all of that. My words are not coming out right at all as I try and explain this. And so that's my concern here, is that there are people that perpetrated these crimes that are getting no flack back. And we know who they are. Their names are listed in these files. These women have testified to who they are. They are not speaking publicly about it for fear of retribution. But government officials and elected officials should be able to speak out and say these people need to be held accountable.
And that's the thing, is a lot of these young women were very young. I mean, you talk about middle schoolers, freshmen in high school. Now they are grown 40-year-old women. And this went on for a very long time. And you look at the impact that this had on so many, and it is a lot of young women that were a part of this whole scheme, this whole web of sexual assault and harassment. It took a major toll on their lives. And there are people...
Oh, they'll never be the same.
And there are these men that did all these things, and women, and that are very powerful and wealthy, and they're still going on with their lives. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, we know that they obviously have had to taken the fall for this. But at the end of the day, there's more to this story.
Yeah. As we're seeing on YouTube, one comment comes in: anyone in those files needs to be held accountable regardless of party affiliation. I agree. 713-440-8870. David from Friendswood is on the line. David, what are you thinking today?
I'm thinking y'all are onto something. I'm pretty far right, and I understand y'all are sort of on the left. We're totally on the same side on this. I haven't heard it mentioned, but Trump called Boebert and put her under a ton of pressure to withdraw her support for Massey's bill to release the files. That's nuts.
He didn't bring her into the Oval Office. He didn't meet her in her office. He brought her into the Situation Room, the most confidential room on the planet, to have a discussion with her. Kind of makes you wonder, huh, David?
Yeah, I didn't know that part. Yeah. It's so sus. And I mean, he's going full force against Massey, who, this guy was MAGA for a long time, not 100%, but he knows the base loves Massey, and yet he's still going full force against him. So he's going against what his base wants. And the only thing that can explain is that Massey is leading the charge to get the Epstein files released, and Donald Trump has something to hide in it.
David, you mentioned that you are far right, correct? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So does this take the sheen off Donald Trump the way he's behaving? What will this do, do you think, to a lot of those Trump supporters out there?
Well, the sheen's been off Trump for a long time. It kind of, the further right you go, the less sheeny he is. But, a lot of us were sort of upbeat, optimistic when he won. I'd say about 2 months after, hopes were kind of dashed, and now they're gone. They're completely gone, especially after the Iran strike. This guy he's part of the uniparty. He's just no different than any of them, and he was supposed to be the most different. And I mean, everyone worried about him like he's just so different. He's going to ruin everything, and he's ruined nothing as far as we're concerned.
David, let me ask you one more quick question. I know it's a little off topic here, but I'm curious since we have you here. When the next presidential election comes, and believing that Trump will not be on the ballot, but probably a Trump acolyte would be on the ballot, would you consider voting for a more liberal candidate, or would you stick Republican?
I will probably vote for whoever hates Israel the most. I think they have our country in a vice grip. They control our foreign policy. And now, especially with the Trump administration, our domestic policy, the college campuses and stuff. I'm sort of a one-issue guy until this is fixed. So if I voted for Jill Stein this last time, I didn't vote for Trump, but I am far right. But I voted for Jill Stein because she's the only one who wanted to stop a genocide that we're funding. I think a lot of people are similar to me in that.
David, thank you very much for calling and sharing with us, and continue to listen to the show. I don't classify us as far left. I think we are pretty centrist here most of the time, and I hope that you feel that way too. David, thank you for calling. Let's move on to Brian from Montrose. Brian, what's on your mind?
Good afternoon. This is Brian from Montrose. I don't believe it's so much about the president. Now, I am a diehard Democrat, okay? But good,
we get them from both ends of the spectrum on our show. Thank you.
I know. I don't think it's so much about the president. I think it's about all those other powerful people that could be in that file.
Yep.
And I think it worked both ways with Trump and also with Biden. Those are personal friends of theirs, and they really don't want that out there. If you can just kind of, put it under the carpet for a couple of more years until another crisis comes along, like the government shutdown, God forbid.
Yeah.
That's basically how I feel about it. And the thing is, if you really want to put this to bed, release everything. You're the president. You can do that. You can strike boats in the water. You can bomb Iraq, all this other kind of stuff. You can obviously direct your DOJ to release everything and just put it to bed. Or I shouldn't put it that way. That's probably the wrong way.
Brian, I know what you mean, though, but thank you for sharing that. And I think you are definitely onto something there. The concern that I look at is if, in fact, Trump is not necessarily a perpetrator that is revealed in these files, that people will feel like, well, then we don't need to continue this. But the point is they are probably friends, associates. There's a reason that some faction is working so hard not to release this information. And even if they are not necessarily named specifically, there is concern there. And I think they should be released, and we should know across the board who it is.
And we're going to head to Kelly from the Woodlands. Kelly, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi there. I just want to make a comment about the file situation. And that is, if we don't release the files, then what it does is send a message to everybody that did atrocities to young women and girls, and it allows them to keep thinking they can keep doing it because they didn't get caught. And that is unbelievably a bad message to send to people that did awful things to a vulnerable population of people.
Thank you, Kelly. And to the other side of that, it also sends a message to young girls that your voice doesn't matter. We're not going to believe it. Justice won't happen. You don't have to say things. And so I think that just the message across the board is it speaks very loudly. And so I agree, Kelly, that this needs to be resolved.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you, Kelly, for giving us a call.
There's a lot to this, and I know we're not anywhere near done talking about this story. I do hope that the next time or in the near future when we talk about it, it's because these files have been released.
And I do think it's very interesting that we heard from people that listen to Hello Houston from the left and the right and in the middle. And I think there's an across-the-board consensus. Release the Epstein files.
And you know what they're telling us? Release ourselves from talking on this topic and go to our break.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll speak with Chase Untermeyer, professor of practice at the Hobby School of Public Affairs and the University of Houston, and Loren Steffy, writer-at-large for Texas Monthly, about the local and national legacy of former Vice President Dick Cheney. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hi. I'm Michael Schaefer. My partner Ellen and I have been proud supporters of public radio and TV for decades.
We really would be lost without our daily fix of unbiased national and local news, cultural programming, and great entertainment.
But with recent federal defunding, stations like Houston Public Media face real challenges.
Now's the time to step up.
Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ken Burns. The American Revolution was a war for independence, a civil war, and a world war. I invite you to watch our new documentary series, The American Revolution, right here on Houston Public Media, TV 8.
Premiering Sunday night at 7.
On the next Science Friday, Ardem Patapoutian came to the U.S. at the age of 18, escaping violence in Lebanon.
In public, even when I was an assistant professor, I would say things like I'm a researcher. I wouldn't say I'm a scientist.
He went on to win the Nobel Prize for studying the biology behind the sense of touch. That's on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
Coming up tomorrow on News 88.7.
Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House, presenting Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis on Friday, November 14th at 8 p.m., featuring the music of Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, and more. thegrand.com. Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages. More information at genpro.com. or by calling 713-597-3521.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celestia Sherman and Ernie Manous.
Late former Vice President Dick Cheney, who passed away last week, leaves behind a political legacy that is both acclaimed and controversial. What some people might not know are his connections to Texas and the Houston area. To tell us more about Cheney's national, international, and local legacy, we welcome Chase Untermeyer, professor of practice at the Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston, and Loren Steffy, writer at large for Texas Monthly. Chase, Loren, welcome to Hello Houston. If folks listening want to join the conversation, if you would like to join in, give us a call, 713-440-8870. You can call or text. I guess I'll start, Chase, with you here in the studio right off the bat. You think about Dick Cheney and a lot of different thoughts come to mind. And we saw a career where, depending on where you were on the political spectrum, at different points, you either loved him or didn't love him so much, and it tended to shift. Unique unto him as a political figure to have that kind of dichotomy of appreciation and to see it shift over time.
You could count the shift from the time he became vice president. Before then, I would say that Dick Cheney's reputation was one of the best you could hope for in national government. And one of the longest, because he became chief of staff to President Ford back in the 70s when Cheney was, I believe, 34. And he was chosen as Secretary of Defense by the first President Bush because that immediately followed the defeat of the president's nomination of former Senator John Tower for Secretary of Defense. And it was felt after all the allegations raised against Senator Tower, which I think were uncalled for, that they needed somebody of unquestioned respect and reputation in Washington, and Dick Cheney filled that particular slot. In later times, when he was vice president, that's when the controversy really began.
Yeah, but then, Loren, it shifted again afterwards. And once again, it depends where you are on the political spectrum, where you fall at what times with him. But your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, you know, he left the Defense Department and he went into the business world. He became CEO of Halliburton, and he was really chosen for that role because Halliburton was trying to expand internationally, and they wanted somebody with a lot of international contacts who could open doors. And, you know, Cheney obviously knew a lot of world leaders by that point. You know, a lot of the oil companies Halliburton were dealing with were state-owned, and so they wanted his sort of political gravitas and his Rolodex, if you will, to help them, you know, get into these new areas of business. You know, it depends on who you ask, like many other things with Cheney. It depends on who you ask in terms of, you know, what kind of CEO he was and how well he did. Shareholders have sort of mixed views on that.
From your point of view, what kind of a CEO was he? And how did that pair up with how he performed as a vice president? Do we see common trends in behavior, in ways he approached situations, how he solved problems? Or is there a difference depending on the role he was in?
Well, it's interesting. If you talk to people within the company, they'll tell you that he was actually a very good CEO, and he was much more hands-on than they expected, or that he was really intended to be, because again, he was sort of supposed to be a rainmaker or figurehead that would open up these international markets. But he did actually get fairly involved in the business, and that has a mixed track record. I mean, he oversaw the acquisition of Dresser, which ultimately led to a lot of asbestos claims that led to the bankruptcy of KBR, the KBR subsidiary. You know, and that had put a big drag on the stock for a good number of years. You know, all of this stuff, by comparison, seems relatively small potatoes when you look at you know, sort of the business and political realm of today, of course.
Yeah.
You know, for me, whenever I think of the former Vice President Dick Cheney's legacy, I often go to 9/11, because for me at that time, I was young, and he was often described, I think, as one of the most powerful vice presidents because of his central role in the architecture of the post 9/11, you know, war on terror.
sure. And I'm curious about how much of that, from the public standpoint, continues on in his legacy today, right now, because of after now that he has passed.
I definitely want to answer that question, but I think an important point should be made that as we learned in high school civics, the vice president does not have any authority.
Yes.
The vice president is not in the military chain of command. The vice president, for historical reasons, was often laughed at as being so famously weak.
Yeah.
Cheney changed all that. And as a result, we really can't compare being a vice president with being the CEO of even a small company, let alone a big company like Halliburton.
Right.
However, on the morning of September 11th, 2001, he was the only ranking person in the White House. President Bush was in Florida. And it was a very signal moment when Cheney, in the Situation Room or wherever he was taken, was asked the question by a military officer whether the United States should shoot down the airliner that eventually crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. At the time, it was headed toward Washington. And Cheney made a statement, a decision, if you will, that was wholly presidential. But he didn't hesitate to do that because he knew that President Bush was not available for that decision. As things turned out, tragically for the passengers either way, they crashed the plane in Pennsylvania, and there was never a moment when U.S. forces had to shoot it down.
Wow.
But to go back to my earlier question that I asked Loren, though, also, the behaviors and what you're talking about that you see on 9/11 that has become kind of the legacy of him, did he perform similarly as a CEO, or did he have a different, having come up the way he had through the public channels in service to the government, did that more shape how he became a CEO? I guess I'm wondering which came first, the chicken or the egg, in the way he approached life.
Well, in this case, we know it was the chicken. Namely, he was CEO of Halliburton before he was vice president.
Right.
But he was CEO of Halliburton after his prior service in government, in which he clearly knew the limits of a vice president. He was chosen vice president, that is to be on the ticket with George W. Bush, because he brought to the potential administration a knowledge of how national security works, including in crisis situations. So while, of course, nobody knew what kind of crisis would crop up, there was a great deal of confidence that Cheney, with his experience, but also his private lessons in how to act in crises, that is, in simulated situations, would be a calm, steady, decisive person.
Yeah. Later in life, he seems to, I don't know, and you guys can help me with this. I don't know if he changes position in more social terms or if he just becomes more vocal about his feelings on them. And I'm talking about how he supported or didn't support President Trump, how he kind of moved away from where the Republican Party was going. What can we take from that in understanding him?
We can set aside the question of how he voted and whom he endorsed in 2024 in order to speak to the fact that throughout his public life, he operated very quietly, some might say stealthily. It was not his aim whatsoever to have a profile. Now, as vice president, particularly on a day like September 11th, he could not avoid being seen in a high-profile circumstance. But mostly, and I saw this most intimately when he was Secretary of Defense and I was on the White House staff, he much preferred to have no profile, no identification with a matter at hand, even though he was heavily involved in it. I interpret his endorsement of Kamala Harris over Donald Trump in 2024 as a statement on Trump's personality and on Cheney's experience with prior presidents who operated wholly different from Donald Trump. And as a result, while I can't speak for the late vice president, I think Trump violated Cheney's sense of how a president should act.
Right. And as you talk about, he tended to want to be kind of more very integral in the behind the scenes of the inner workings of the White House. He really was, though, a major advocate on the expansion of the executive power. And so how do you think he was successful in kind of reshaping the party in that regard?
Partly it's because he knew exactly what he believed, that, yes, there should be a much more powerful president, particularly vis-a-vis the Congress. He had that sense first implanted, I would say, back in the 70s, because in the Vietnam post-Watergate period, the Congress was highly assertive. It was controlled heavily by Democrats, so there was a political aspect, but there was also the philosophical aspect of should a president defer to Congress as much as Cheney felt Ford was forced to do. And that sentiment only grew as years went by, and particularly in the period that we've been discussing when he was vice president.
Yeah.
I don't know, Loren, if this makes sense the way I'll ask this question, but I'll let you take it however you want. Did you find Cheney, do you believe Cheney to be more principled or pragmatic? What drove him?
I think he was more of a pragmatist. He was sort of, and that's part of the reason that, he didn't align with the Trump folks, right? I mean, he was very much from that pragmatic era of, sort of the late 80s, early 90s, the elder George Bush. And he had this sort of sense of pragmatism. You saw that when he was in business. We were talking about how he expanded the powers of the vice presidency. I think, in some ways he got a taste of that as a CEO. Unlike a politician, a CEO is much more of a force of one. Within a corporate structure, the CEO has the ultimate say in most things. And I think that probably taught Cheney a little bit about how to approach politics perhaps differently than he had in the past. So, I think that he looked at the situation, and we were talking about 9/11, clearly that was a situation where he had to make some very pragmatic decisions. And you could see that even later in his career, he was not necessarily bound by ideology so much as what was best for the sense of what was best for the country.
Chase, help me understand then this part of it, understanding what we just heard and knowing that, he was in the position of being the one in power, coming into being the vice president and having to then take the back seat. Was there an understanding, an agreement with President Bush II that you will be a more engaged vice president? I will defer to your knowledge, your ability to do things. Or was he prepared to step in and be, horrible term, the second banana, to sit back?
Let's remember that he was chosen for the ticket with George W. Bush because of his experience in national government, particularly national security. George W. Bush had been an outstanding governor of Texas. He ran for president in 2000 on the grounds of becoming an education president because he had forged that reputation as a governor. He wanted to take it, as he did with the No Child Left Behind policy, to the national level. He had not traveled very much in his personal, private life, unlike many an individual, including his own father. So he, in effect, recognized that he needed somebody like Cheney to be his partner. Traditionally, vice presidents are chosen, or shall we say running mates are chosen for political reasons, to balance the ticket, to come from a different part of the country or maybe a different ideological thought line. In Cheney's case, it was very clear that being from Wyoming with 3 electoral votes was not a political play. It was clearly and emphatically one of having the expertise that Cheney offered.
But I can't help but think back, and correct me where I'm wrong here. I think back to Reagan and Ford back in 1980, where Reagan is saying, or Ford is possibly a VP to Reagan as long as Reagan lets Ford run the government. Is it kind of that same agreement? If I've got that story remembrance correct.
In that brief moment at the Republican convention in 1980, there was a thought that Gerald Ford could supplement Reagan's knowledge of national affairs. That didn't last very long because the notion came that Ford would be, as someone's phrase, a co-president. You can't have that. And I don't think Dick Cheney ever thought of himself as vice president as a co-president. Since vice presidents, once again, have no constitutional or statutory authority, the best that they can be, and Cheney is the best example, is the most influential person, the last person to speak to the president, the last one to give his opinion. And Cheney reinforced that by having a staff in the White House of experts who shadowed, if you will, the president's staff. And all the president's staff knew was that if there was a discussion on a policy matter, that the Cheney staff would take that information back to the vice president, and if and when the moment came, that the vice president was able to speak to the president and convey that point of view.
It's interesting because as we speak about, Dick Cheney's vice presidency, he was often very much considered during that time very conservative. Looking at today's political landscape, do you think he would still be considered very conservative?
He would be. He had a very conservative voting record as a member of the House of Representatives. He had a very conservative notion of what the national government should do. But once again, if we're trying to interpret his attitude toward the current government, in the absence of his being here to tell it to us directly, it was on other grounds, not on philosophical grounds, but on grounds of fitness and propriety and various senses of how a president should act that motivated his endorsement of Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm. Loren, as we wrap this up, the last question from me to you is, with the passing of Dick Cheney, how do you think he should be remembered?
Well, I think that his political career definitely overshadows his business career. I mean, the 5 years that he ran Halliburton was sort of a blip. And honestly, there was a lot of what we considered controversy at the time with the government contracts that Halliburton got, and was he steering them, to his old company and all that. It all seems very quaint now compared to some of the political scandals we've had in the, 20 years or so since then. So I think that, his legacy is going to be one as of this political career that spanned decades and filled all these different roles, defense secretary during the Gulf War, or during Desert Storm. And, and then as we've talked about, kind of redefining what the United States vice president, what their role is.
Chase Untermeyer is a professor of practice at the Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston, and Loren Steffy is a writer at large for Texas Monthly. Chase and Loren, thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
And coming up, our current obsessions. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
You can hear that Sunday at 2 p.m.
Splendid isolation.
Listen here for Hour 2 of our appreciation of singer-songwriter Warren Zevon, 2025 inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Warren was simply more literary than most of the other California writers. He had an edgier view of his own life and of their lives.
More thoughtful comments and Warren Zevon music coming here real soon. Saturday evening at 7 on News 88.7.
A popular sheriff emerges from a violent scandal.
Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey says his office has updated its training policies after former officers pled guilty to torturing two men in January.
But another scandal is already brewing in the jail he oversees.
They call it the Blue Wave.
The Blue Wave. We're called the Blue Wave.
A blue wave of violence crashes inside a Mississippi jail on the next Reveal.
It's coming up Saturday at 2 p.m.
Support comes from Alley Theater. Performances of A Christmas Carol, presented by UT Health Houston, begins November 16th and features Ebenezer Scrooge and the spirits who teach the meaning of the holiday season. More at alleytheater.org. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Collaborative for Children, advancing early education across Greater Houston by working with caregivers and communities so every child enters school ready to succeed. More at collabforchildren.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celeste Diaz-Sherman and Ernie Manous.
We are back
Welcome
again.
back.
We've been working it today. A lot going on, a lot to unpack. I'm happy we had this opportunity with Chase Untermeyer being
Yes.
here with us, because I am always fascinated by, I always think back to, and I know very few of you are going to remember this, but the whole Reagan-Ford thing and how it was who is going to get the nomination. And that's probably like the last time that we really saw a convention where activity was happening on a convention as opposed to everything having been decided beforehand.
Right.
And the whole thing about Ford was the incumbent. Well, he had been president, and then Carter had come in. He wanted to be president again, but Reagan was going to be the nominee. Should Ford be the vice president? It was how influential would Ford be? And to have Chase here to actually talk about the similarities of that between what is seen as not fully prepared candidate and getting a really strong VP there. Why are you looking at me like that?
No, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about my first question, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, let me explain it to you." And I was like, "Yes, please do. I need, a little refresher." But yes, but you know what time it is, Ernie?
What time is it, Celeste?
It's time for our current obsession.
Oh, I got a good one.
All right. Well, real quick, just for those who are tuning in, our current obsession is the TV show that you run home to continue. It's that song that you have on repeat, or the book, or your Kindle, the book that you're reading on your Kindle that you just can't put down, or it just might be something that is kind of taking up your thoughts. Ernie, what is yours?
I've already mentioned it this week on the show already. Squid Game, The Challenge.
I have no idea what that is.
Squid Game is the TV series, which a bunch of people are trying to get money, and so they all go on this game, and they are killed one by one until one still lives, and they get all the money.
Okay, wait. Squid Game, like the Korean?
Yes.
Yes.
But there is also Squid Game, The Challenge, which is a reality show where they get a bunch of people that play the games.
Based on the move.
They don't kill the contestants that lose, but they have little ink packs that blow up on them, and they have to lay on the ground and pretend they're dead. But I'm fascinated by the show. I watched the first season, loved every minute of it, so I was so excited the new season's here. I'm almost all the way through. The finale drops Tuesday, and I'll finally get to see who wins. I'm still a episode and a half behind, so I haven't gotten there yet. It gives me something to live for the weekend. I'm obsessed with this show. I love it. I think the characters in season one, the contestants, not characters, I kind of enjoyed them a little bit more, but I'm enjoying this season too. So that's what I'm going to run home and watch. How about you? What are you obsessed with?
Okay, so I'm feeling a little nostalgic, a little reflective. My birthday's coming up.
I really hadn't heard.
I'm obsessed right now with milestone birthdays. Think about when you turn 10 and think about, just going
just last week.
No. Or if you're, how different you view your birthday when you're turning 30 versus 50 or 80.
I don't know that I view it that different. I kind of host the same kind of birthday parties I had when I was a kid.
Everybody wears birthday hats?
Oh, I'd love it. And I want the cake to come out with candles, and I want to blow them out, and I want to open my gift. I don't think I've grown up or matured, but you are having a very mature birthday.
I'm having a birthday party, and it's interesting because I throw birthday parties now for my 4-year-old and 9-year-old. I don't have birthday parties anymore.
Well, you're having a big one tomorrow, so we're very excited about that.
Yes.
That's fun.
Any other, give us a call, 713-440-8870. You've got like 2 minutes to get it in.
Read Alex's, because I've got a story that goes with this one.
Where I don't see it.
My current obsession this week has been looking for my holiday card I'll be sending to family and friends. I didn't find anything, so I may just make my own. The reason I'm excited about this, I used to get obsessed with sending Christmas cards. I would send everyone handwritten, about 500 of them back when I was in college. I don't know. I got obsessed with it. And my favorite Christmas card, still my favorite Christmas card. I'm sorry if it's kind of off color, but it was a picture of Rudolph sitting in a chair holding a rifle, and behind him on the wall were mounted all the heads of the other reindeer. And it said on the bottom, they used to laugh and call him names. It was from The Far Side. I used to, I sent that card every year.
That is very funny. And, I will say, as we get closer, that will be one of my obsessions is Christmas cards. I love when people send me their Christmas cards, especially now when they get really clever with family photos, or I have some friends that dress up and do like a theme every year. It'll be very fun.
Well, those are our obsessions. What are yours? Keep sharing them. Alex says she's going to have a party at Dave & Buster's.
Oh, to Luby's.
To Luby's. You're going to go from Dave & Buster's to Luby? You can eat at Dave &
interesting.
Buster's.
I thought all the Luby's shut down.
Oh, no, I think there's still...
No. A lot of the Luby's shut down. Yes, I used to...
A sad note to leave you on today's show.
I used to love after church. Okay, and that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for watching and listening to Hello Houston and joining us. We will be back tomorrow with more conversations. And tomorrow we will speak with Houston City Council at-large candidate Dwight Boykins. So get your questions ready. And he's heading into the runoff against Alejandra Salinas. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.